Good morning. It is Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. Our panelists today, Shannon Reeves, the Associate Professor at Alabama A&M University, and Stan McDonald. He's a political consultant. I'm James Lomax, filling in for Dale Jackson. You're on Yellowhammer TV Live. All right, we've got quite a lot of news to talk about today. More chaos going on within the White House. There's a Senate candidate that's having a little financial issues. The filibuster rule is back in the limelight, so there's plenty to discuss. Let's get to our headlines. Scaramucci, the mooch, is out after only 11 days of being the communications director within the White House, serving with Donald Trump. If you had bought milk on the day that he was hired, it would still be good by the time he was fired. There's a lot of chaos going on right now. Stan, I'll start with you over here. Is this a sign of problems or progress within the White House?
Both. Scaramucci, I guess the lesson he learned real fast is there can only be one Donald Trump. And Donald Trump gets away with all kind of things. And the people like him and they support him and love him and all that. And, just look at it. I mean, when Trump had his, vulgar remarks back during the campaign, that's behind us now and all that. But he somehow navigated through that. But if you're not the president, if you're not the man, and you talk like that, there's no way. Now, I understand that he thought that he didn't know he was on mic and all that, but OMG, as they say. I mean, he learned real fast that everything is known in Washington, D.C. when he gets in that situation.
Yeah, Shannon, I mean, do you think that this can continue to go on, all this turnover? I mean, Reince Priebus, Sean Spicer, now the mooch. How long do you think this continues?
I think you're seeing the Trumpetization of the White House that's happening right now. Basically, you're seeing the big purge is what's going on. Donald Trump, I believe, has realized he tried the first 6 months to in some way surround himself with conventional Republican people who had some experience in Washington, and it didn't work too well for him. I think what you're going to see is more transition. Anyone who had anything remotely to do with the Republican Party in the past, he's moving them out. I think you'll see more New Yorkers. I think you'll see more business types, those who are entrepreneurs, who take risks, who think like he does. I think in this transition, he's going to make that type of change. I think there'll be many more changes to come. And furthermore, I think what we're seeing is, for the first time, a president who's learning on the job right out in plain sight, which is really not. Most presidents have handlers around to try to shape the message and shape the image of the president. But you're seeing this president actually learn on the job and make transitions where everyone can see.
Would you say that communications director would be one of the most difficult jobs within the Trump presidency, with how he tweets his message and goes direct?
Yes, I would. He's just different from anybody else, and he's an individual that it's going to. Yeah, I'd say that job is very difficult. You never know what you're going to deal with.
Well, when you're a communications director, the first thing is you have to know when you're on the record and when you're not on the record. So while the president may appear to learn things on the job, those who surround him cannot be learned on the job. Those who surround him actually have to know what they're doing in their specific areas of focus, because they serve to make the president stronger and to make the president successful. So that's what you want. You want to have a communication director that first understands communications. So it might not be good to have an investment guy be your communications guy.
Great points all around. We'll see what happens there. Next up, Strange, the senator here in the state that is in the Senate race, had a little issue with a little finances. There was $1,000 that was taken from his Senate race and given to his actual state Alabama Attorney General's campaign, and there was an ethics issue surrounding this that the Secretary of State brought up. Guys, this ethics committee meeting that was supposed to determine this was actually moved to the day after the election. Now, Stan, is this being nitpicky, or is this something that's necessary to talk about?
I don't think it's being nitpicky, no. And you know, as an attorney myself, I try not to prejudge things, but that's really it's a very important. If the ethics commission were to stamp some sort of need for an investigation on that or some sort of further action, and that happened right before the election, it would be very detrimental to Luther Strange, because he's already got so many potentially scandalous things plaguing his campaign. And so whoever moved it to August 16th did the Strange campaign a huge favor. Now, whether or not they had other grounds or there was precedent to set it back like they did, I'm not sure. I don't know. But I tell you what, it was a good day for the Luther Strange campaign when they got it moved.
Yeah, and now the Luther campaign has come out and said that this $1,000 was necessary because they were actually purchasing the website from their former campaign. This would have normally been done, but it was outside the time frame that you're supposed to be transferring funds. Shannon, is this a deeper issue?
Well, I don't know about a deeper issue, but I think it's a rookie mistake. I think when you're running a campaign like this, you have to have people who run campaigns who are on your staff, who you run these things by the necessary, the appropriate agency to determine, hey, we want to make this move. Can we get clearance on this? Will this not be a problem? You want to make sure you check this out, because you're dealing with someone who had funds from a state campaign now running for a federal office. And so in campaign finance, you can't mix federal and state monies in certain ways, because federal money is coming down to the state level, yes. State money is going to the federal level, no. So there are different rules and regulations to keep everything ethical. So to have your campaign people, your finance people have to get things cleared first when they're going to make a move. Someone around the table has to say, hey, let's check this out before we actually do it, or we're going to get the candidate in trouble. But to move the date of the actual hearing to the day after the election, that's some good old-fashioned Southern politics going on right there.
Yeah, I think the date was the main issue there. Is it was only $1,000, actually an expenditure from his campaign, so it's not like they were getting an illicit donation or anything, but the date is a little bit different. Moving along, we're curious. Donald Trump has been tweeting the Republican senators. He went on kind of another tweet storm. Are these things working? Are these things moving the message? Are Republican senators actually responding to this? Stan, I noticed the other day that Senator Jeff Flake actually came out with a very long editorial about how the Trump presidency is not working out. Are these senators responding to his message?
Personally, I think they are. Now, they're going to say that they're not. They don't like these tactics. They're going to scream. But listen, right now, Donald Trump has the ear of a whole lot of the grassroots back home. Now, different states, it's a different story. In Alabama, he definitely does. In other states, maybe not. But they don't like his unpredictability. I think they're scared of him. I think I did hear a story, several months ago. The biggest fear that these elected officials have in Washington, D.C., is that Donald Trump will tweet about them. And so now I don't know how long this is going to last. These unconventional tactics. Any day now, you never know when it's going to take a turn south. I think that some of the tactics, I guess you'd say, that the president employs, they're not time tested. They're new. They're unconventional. Now, maybe he's made an entire living doing that in the real estate world. I don't doubt that, and he probably has a rhyme and reason behind what he does. But to answer your question, I think it actually does, even though they say that it doesn't. I mean, look at Senator Sessions, and I'm a Senator Sessions fan, but let me ask you a question. All this stuff about we're going to fire him and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, do you think that it's caused him to get up a little bit earlier in the morning and try to find out what the president really wants, and have they maybe elevated this and that? I think probably yes. He may have spent some time also talking to his wife about, do we want this job? But once they decided they want it, my guess is he feels like that he's been, I guess, encouraged, shall we say.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about Senator Sessions, or Attorney General Sessions now. Shannon, do you think that if he was to single someone out with one of his tweets, kind of like Stan mentioned, that it's really going to hurt that senator in the long run?
Sure it can. Never underestimate the power of the bully pulpit. The president sits where every word that he speaks is listened to. and can get plenty of circulation and saturation around the country, and particularly in each individual senator, state, or member of Congress in their district. The bully pulpit is quite powerful because when the president speaks, it's amplified. When you as a senator or a member of Congress speaks, it's not amplified with the same fervor. So you'd have to go on an all-out campaign against the president to be able to take the president on. But when you have one-party politics, it becomes a circular firing squad. We have that in Alabama, right? Republicans control everything. Well, we have it in Washington, D.C. as well. So when you have this one-party politics that actually occurs, when you're actually in charge, well, the fight becomes within the party, we're going to go this way or that way, and how we're going to actually do this. So this is not uncommon, but at this stage, it is, in my opinion, effective when the president speaks and tries to push members of Congress or members of the Senate.
Do these tweets backfire on him?
I don't think that they do. I mean, there'll be consequences from it. But I think at the end of the day, ultimately, he gets a lot more than he loses from it. I think that a lot of people, this is one respect where I'm really a fan of what I see him doing, because what we've seen historically is like Obama or Clinton, these guys would push the envelope with the bully pulpit. They would get in there and be in the Oval Office and become street fighters. Republicans, the Bushes, and even Reagan, not as much Reagan, but they would be a little more genteel, a little more civil, a little more, I'm not going to go beneath the dignity of the office. But Donald Trump's getting in there and mixing it up, and these guys that like to take shots at the White House, they think twice now about that. And I think the people are ready to see that.
Okay. I would not want Donald Trump tweeting about me, although it may help me get more followers. Stan kind of mentioned it a little while ago, but Attorney General Sessions is now, it came to a boiling point with Donald Trump, but now it seems that it's simmered off a little bit. Listen, guys, is this something that Senator Sessions survives in the long run, and does he do something else? If he comes back to the state of Alabama, what happens then? This guy was at the peak of his career. He's taken this Attorney General's job, probably even better than where he was at. What happens next, Shannon?
Well, I predicted last week that Sessions would it would be up to him. It would be his decision as to which direction to go in. And we made a prediction that, well, there was somebody who was fired on Friday, but it actually wasn't Sessions. That it was actually was a Scaramucci, right? Who got fired. So changes are coming. You just got to kind of keep your eyes open. When it comes to Attorney General Sessions, I think one of the challenges are now with a new chief of staff. Priebus. See how long it's been? Priebus got fired by Friday, right? And Scaramucci's this week. Oh, wow. See how it goes. So actually, what the president has to be concerned about is if you move Sessions from Attorney General, you have to go through a confirmation process. The only way you can avoid that is by to have someone who's already been Senate confirmed to transfer into the position of Attorney General or to make a recess appointment. So the conversation, the Sessions go to, for example, Homeland Security, where now General Kelly has now gone into Chief of Staff. So there are a lot of different conversations that are actually going on. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We say, hey, well, Sessions can come home to Alabama, and maybe he decides to run for governor. Someone is seasoned in politics. I'm not so certain that Jeff Sessions is looking necessarily for a job. I think he wants to be in a place where he can actually make a difference, and I think he likes being Attorney General.
Vegas still has the odds that Jeff Sessions will be the next out, Stan. Do you think that happens?
You know what? I think if I had to do predicting, I think that Sessions will be somewhere else in 30 days. I don't think, we're all trying to learn the Trump philosophy of leadership as we go and learn it real time, I guess. I don't think that he says the kind of things he says lightly and all of a sudden it just kind of goes away and, as some might say, swept under the rug. So I agree with Shannon here that I think they're working the situation. The rumor this weekend about Sessions going to Homeland Security and those kind of musical chairs, and Shannon has said why, the rhyme and reason why you would do it like that with the confirmation of recess appointments. I think those were probably very sound rumors, to be honest. And but now I don't think that I don't know where Attorney General Sessions goes after that. But if he comes back to Alabama and wants to do anything, he could probably write his own ticket. And deservedly so, by the way. I think, the way he has handled this whole thing, shows us why we love him like we do.
Yes, yes.
He's been very humble in dealing with the criticisms. He's done a very good job. So stick with us. We will be right back to talk about a filibuster rule here in the state of Alabama. We're on Yellowhammer TV Live. Welcome back to Yellowhammer TV Live. We're having a lot of intense discussion this morning. We're going to get into another topic and spend some time on it, the filibuster rule in the Senate. Obviously, this has created some controversy recently. Donald Trump has come out and said the Republicans need to get rid of this rule. They say it's archaic, it's outdated. And here in the state of Alabama, it's actually become an issue here within the Senate race. Congressman Mo Brooks, I think a little bit Roy Moore have come out and said that they would get rid of the filibuster rule to get some things done. Luther Strange actually signed a letter that he was in support of the filibuster rule. Is the filibuster rule still important? Is there still some usefulness to it, Stan, or is it something that really is time to go?
You know, James, that really is a question that depends on which side of the aisle you're on at the present time. The filibuster rule, now one thing I want to say about that is it's not in the Constitution. For somebody who thinks, oh my goodness, the Founding Fathers set this thing out and it's sacred and we have to have it. It's not in the Constitution. It's a rule that started probably back in 1850. Shannon probably knows a little bit more about it. And for the viewers, and a lot of people don't understand what it is, so I just say, what it disallows right now is for Trump's agenda to go through the Senate with the majority vote. Most people may feel like that once the Republicans carry the Senate with a majority of 52 to 48, that means that they ought to be able to pass tax cuts or health care reform. They can't do it. And that's understated and underreported. It can't be done. This is a seminal issue. It really is, it's almost like a cruel joke being played on most voters who don't understand the filibuster rule. Because the Democrats can filibuster and kill all of Trump's agenda, period, exclamation mark, all day long until you get 60 senators, and there's only 52 Republicans. You have to have 60 senators to let it even come out or to push it out of the Senate. It's not going to happen without an end to the filibuster rule. So if someone cares about the Donald Trump America First agenda, it goes nowhere, unless the filibuster rule is removed. So Trump, that's the most important issue he's got.
Yeah, Shannon, I know there's the nuclear option. I know that a lot of people believe that if it was the other way around, that Republicans would be using the filibuster rule, and that also that there is a requirement to try to meet in the middle on some issues, and that's the reason the filibuster rule exists. Do you think it still has a time and place in the society? Absolutely.
I believe half the people in Washington would fail my class. As a political scientist, let me say, the filibuster, it goes back to, first of all, a couple of things Stan mentioned. First of all, the vast majority of American people do not pay attention in civics class or American government class in high school. If you paid attention, you wouldn't be disappointed. Politics, by definition, is the process by which we determine who gets what, where, when, and how, right? But it's the art of persuasion and the art of compromise. If one party who's in the majority can have everything they want all the time, that's not necessarily democracy. You have to have an ability to compromise on some issues. So that doesn't mean you get everything you want all the time. Maybe you get 60%, 70% of what you want. This time you come back next year and try to get a little bit more. So in the Senate, it requires 60 votes out of 100 to move the legislation forward and to pass legislation in a sense, or to procedurally move things along. So yes, it means that you can't have, and by the way, while Republicans are in the majority today, they haven't always been. So when Democrats were in the majority, the rule held so that Democrats were forced to compromise in a sense and just couldn't run the table. So as long as you have a majority, you can just kind of get anything you want. The rules were put in place so that senators were forced to compromise with other senators. And that's what politics is. So you can be up today and have a majority today, but the other party can be in the majority 5, 10 years from now and do the exact same thing. That's why the filibuster is in place.
Valid points. Stan, it's become somewhat of an issue here in the Senate race in the state of Alabama. Do enough voters understand what the filibuster rule is for this to be a very seminal issue in this race?
Well, that's a great question. I do think that it takes an election like this for people to really start to understand it. So I do think the informed voter is beginning to understand it, and I do think it'll be a significant issue. It's one of those things that's a little bit, the average voter doesn't really dig into it as much, but I think in the final 3 or 4 or 5 days stretch of the election that enough of them will. Yes, I think it makes a difference.
Fair enough. We're going to filibuster this show, and we will be right back here on Yellowhammer TV Live. A lot of headlines to talk about today. We've discussed quite a bit, but we want to move to the biggest stories of the day for these guys, what they want to talk about, what's important to them. Shannon, we'll start with you. What's your biggest story of the day?
One of my big stories today is one of my favorites. Sheriff Joe Arpaio from Maricopa County, Arizona, was found guilty of contempt for enforcing policy to target illegal aliens in Arizona. So we're going to see what happens with that case. They're threatening that some potential that he might have to actually be in the tent jails that he set up in Maricopa County. But he has good lawyers, so we'll see how that case goes.
Do you think that Donald Trump maybe pardons him? I know he's an important conservative figure in a lot of ways.
Well, it's not it's a federal charge. I don't know what kind of charge it actually is if he has that. But I believe definitely it's something the president. It's one of those issues that the president clearly come to his aid about.
They tweet about. There may be some tweeting going on.
Yes, some tweeting.
Stan, what about you? What's the biggest news story of the day?
Well, you know, they say all politics is local. And on this story, it's really super local. In fact, it reaches all the way into the home. So I'm going to go gossip column today and talk about the divorce that's taking place down in West Palm Beach between Dave and Lynn Aronson. If you don't know who they are, they're the ones they're having the Trump divorce, is what they're calling it. A former Miami Dolphins cheerleader and the chief prosecutor in the county of West Palm Beach are divorcing now, and they're apparently super high-profile people that know the Trumps, and they cite as the main reason their difference is over she is a Republican supporting Donald Trump, and he is a liberal Democrat. And so, may not be a big story. Well, to be honest, it is a big story. And it just goes to show that politics really does matter, and even in the home front.
Shannon, what do you take out of that? Would you get divorced over Trump?
I say, look, send the lawyer fees to the president.
Apparently, they go to Mar-a-Lago. I don't know if they go to Mar-a-Lago a lot. He was getting to the point where he was hiding in the bushes. Whenever they would go there, he'd want to be with his wife, but he insisted, please stop tweeting about being here. Please stop posting pictures with Ivanka Trump. Please stop mentioning everything. And she refused. And so it was a big deal.
That sounds like a major deal. A big deal to me today would be the baseball stadium that's in discussion here in Madison or in Huntsville here in North Alabama. There's talks about moving a baseball stadium from the city of Mobile, and this is a big city for the state of this is a big issue for the state of Alabama. Do cities need to be involved in municipal parks? I think that's a big discussion that a lot of people need to talk about. So, thanks for joining us here on Yellowhammer TV Live. Shannon, Stan, thank you as always. Join with us each and every morning. Thank you.